did you still do, in your opinion, about $2,300 of repairs?
Probably more.
More. Tell me why it's more.
We didn't initially see the wiring harness that got damaged. It's got about 40 wires in it that have to be individually addressed.
And was that something you communicated to Ms. Blackburn, that there was more extensive damage than you anticipated?
Not as clearly as I would like.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pass this to Judge Corriero.
This is a really frightening experience. How big was this deer?
It was a big deer. In one of the pictures, there's a
Were you hurt in any way?
No, I wasn't hurt at all. But yeah, it was pretty traumatic.
Now, one thing you said candidly was that you would have liked to have had a new radiator. And this photograph on the right side shows that radiator pretty well dented and pushed into the vehicle.
Right.
You were able to repair that?
We put the radiator back in. It wasn't leaking.
Did you have to bend it back? Or...
The core support we had to bend back.
And there were no holes in it?
No.
No weaknesses?
Well, there could have been weaknesses.
Yeah,
that's why I wanted
because
to
you
change it.
claimed that when you got it back, you were able to drive it for a little while, and then something happened.
It was leaking, and as soon as I got on the highway to go home, it was spraying everywhere.
Judge DeWalda?
Where did you guys meet to get your van?
A gas station, just at the town that they were at in Oregon.
And where were you going to drive the car to?
So they're on the eastern side of Oregon. I needed to drive it to the eastern side of Idaho.
How far were you having to drive?
It was about 5 hours.
And knowing that you didn't fix the radiator, was that the most important part in order to have the car drivable for 5 hours?
Yes.
No, there was actually, the wiring harness was making it so the transmission wouldn't shift at all. It wouldn't have driven anywhere without fixing that.
She could have driven 5 hours with the radiator not being repaired.
Right, I thought so. It wasn't leaking at the time when we drove it 15 miles as a test drive. And it's hard to tell if a part's going to make it or not.
Okay. I'm going to open it up for my colleagues for any more questions.
Ms. Blackburn, you said that you had to have another mechanic in town fix the radiator.
That's correct.
What was the cost of that?
It was about $1,600.
And did that include a complete new radiator?
Yes, it did.
All right, I'm good.
All right, we're going to excuse the parties while we deliberate in this matter. Thank you very much.
This courtroom is now in recess.
Well, this one is a little tough because on the one hand, I think the defendants did not deliver on what they promised in terms of repairing the car. On the other hand, I do believe that the initial estimate was before they knew the extent of the damages, and I do believe that they made a lot of repairs beyond the initial estimate.
She said that it cost her $1,600 to get it fixed. I think she deserves at least that. And I do think she ought to get her travel expenses because of all the complications.
I don't. I think that under any other scenario, she has to come back to get this car. I understand there was kind of a gratuitous promise made, like maybe we'll try to kill two birds with one stone and drive it back to you. Had that been part of the deal in fixing the car, different story. I like your approach with the $1,600, so I would give her the $1,600 to complete the repairs to make it drivable, but I would stop there.
$1,600. I agree. She was good. She was going to have to go back and get the car anyway.
A woman of few words.
Wait, no,
We were just like, $1,600, I agree.
I don't know how much an AC condenser is.
Yes.
They charged her $2,300. We're giving them back $1,600.
Yes.
I think that's
which I think is a real penalty
I can
for
live
them
with that. I can live with that.
under the circumstances. Okay, so we have a verdict?
We have a verdict.
Yes.
This court is again in session.
We have deliberated and reached a verdict. This was a little tough for us, but it came down really to an issue of communication. That was the real breakdown here. We don't doubt that there would have been more than $2,300 in damages, and it probably would have cost you more to get the car repaired, and that you probably did $2,300-ish of work. The problem is there was no meeting of the minds, and the plaintiff wasn't getting the repairs that she thought she was, even if there were additional repairs that were required.
Right.
For that reason, the metric we're going to use is to reimburse you not for every dollar you spent, because clearly some work was done, but for what you had to pay to get the car back to driving condition, which is a total of $1,600. As for the travel costs, we found that under any other circumstance, you would have had to travel back to get the car. You did offer to drive the car back. If that had been part of the original deal, we would have held you to that. But the offer kind of on the back end to drive it back just isn't a reason to hold them responsible for travel costs you would have had anyway. So the verdict of the court is in favor of the plaintiff for the amount of $1,600, and we wish you all the best.
This courtroom is adjourned.
I think it was somewhat fair.
I guess I don't really agree with it. We put in a lot of work and effort to get her back her van.
It was a big animal. It was a big deer for sure.
I would guess a couple hundred pounds anyway.
And it was pretty traumatic for all of us. It was scary.